Nelson here, and welcome to A Father's Note, promoting fathers through building men. It's so important that we always stand up for our fathers. We want you to know we're with you. We're standing behind you 110%. Hello, everybody, and welcome to A Father's Note, where we promote fathers through building men. As always, we're certainly happy to have you spend the evening with us out of your busy schedule. We're certainly glad that you thought enough of us to share this conversation, but we're not going to be prolonging the time. We're going to get right into our subject. You know, we have been doing a series on divorce, and we've already pointed out that we're strong advocates against divorce, and we've shared our reasons why. But what we're going to do, though, if you want to go back, you could go back, or shall I say, you could go back and you can watch some of our previous videos and conversations in which that we had on this subject. Of course, I have my beautiful wife with me.
Good evening.
All right. Well, we're not going to prolong the time any longer. We want to bring on a couple that we certainly admire, certainly appreciate for what they stand for, and in their belief, and they support us. Of course, both of them have been guests on our show multiple other times, but we want to just get right into this conversation, and we're going to bring our guest on, and we're going to say hello to Mr. Ken and Katia Fillmore.
How you guys doing?
Everyone.
Good
All
evening.
right. Now, you know, I'm going to have to fix this again so you don't end up sleeping on the couch tonight.
What I do?
You'll see in a minute.
She know.
You forgot already?
What I do, baby? I'm sorry. Well, I'm saying sorry because I don't even know. I don't know what I did. What I did.
Learned.
Her name.
Her
name.
It's Katia, Mrs. Fillmore.
Okay.
All right.
I like that.
Yes. Okay. Hey, but listen, I just want to bring up the slide in which that we had discussed, that we had talked about last week. And these were some of the things that we had highlighted when we talk about children of divorced families or children of divorced parents. We acknowledge that they do experience some abandonment issues. We talked about children with relationships, the effect that it has on them, how it causes them to choose between parents. We talked about also how children of divorce can be repeated, can have repeated patterns in their life because of divorce. Well, tonight we want to talk about two dynamics that we really think that are really, to me, in my opinion, they're both of them are very important, but definitely one of them is one of the greatest challenges that most couples of divorce couples experience. Especially, it's not so much the parents themselves, but it is if the parent that is divorced remarry, the person in whom that they remarried, that spouse, have to deal with the fact where it causes them to choose between parents in one light, especially also if whether or not they have it'll cause them to choose between their mother and their father, as well as it would cause to choose. We don't use the word in our home and never have stepmother and stepfather, because all of those things come into play. Even I think that's the other part to the parental and the child dynamic. But what we're going to do, we're going to just open the floor for you. And first of all, before we continue to go any further, if you're watching by Facebook, we want to say welcome to you. If you're watching by YouTube, we say welcome to you as well. We're streaming on those two platforms. Hopefully in the future, we'll be streaming on some other platforms as well, but that time will come. But right now, this is what we're working with. But let's talk about, I think it was, let's say, where it calls to choose between two parents. What do you have to say about Mr. and Mrs. Fillmore?
When a child is put in the middle of a situation such as divorce, it's sort of like a tug of war.
Mm-hmm.
And that whole thing is pulling on a child's psyche, their mental stability. It's really pulling on them because they have to choose between the two parents. They don't want to choose, but they feel that they have to choose. Then they start looking at things like who was right, who was wrong, and that's not a child's place. A child's place is a child's place, not an adult's place. And from our standpoint, us watching, the children and how they fight that situation, it grieves our heart, and just looking at that thing, it really breaks them down in a lot of different areas.
Mm-hmm.
What do you have to say about that?
For me, I think that when the kids go through this, what you definitely also see is the breakdown in friendships. Like as parents, one of the first things is to pay attention. You have to pay attention to how they even navigate and handle situations with their friends. If they immediately shut down when a situation arises, that's one of the biggest key points for me, and having to identify what they're going through and how they were dealing with the situations when they shut down. They come home from school and they shut the door. We kind of basically have an old school policy. You don't close doors in here because you don't pay no bills. But and sometimes you have to go beyond you don't pay any bills and figure out what's bothering them, what's going on. And that's how I was able to navigate a lot of that. Was okay, what happened? At first they really don't want to talk.
Mm-hmm.
But the more you dig into the friendships, it's gonna go back to our caveat off of what's going on internally in the divorce situations in the household that has caused them to start reacting that way.
Yeah, they start to internalize a lot
They
of
do.
things.
They do. It will give you some great insight into how to deal with it, because we can't always just get the belt. We can't always be upset with them. I remember we had a situation with one of our oldest, and thank God she came to me and she was like, listen, I just need to let you know, I love you, but what you're giving me, I want it from the other parent.
Yeah, that was it was an eye opener for me.
Yeah,
it really was. She was getting everything that she wanted. She was getting it from bonus mom, but she couldn't get it from biological mom. And the reason she couldn't get it is because biological mom had turned off all emotions
in order to deal with the situation.
Exactly.
So
Wow.
as a bonus parent, you cannot always get offended. You can't get offended in certain areas because it's what they're dealing with. You're not dealing with the day-to-day physical, mental, emotional struggle that they're dealing with. You have to take a step back out of yourself and put yourself on the back burner as a parent first and love them through it and talk them through it. So how we got over that hump was, I told her, I said, I'm always going to be here.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to feel any way to tell me something like that. I'm always going to love you, but I have to take a step back so that you can reaffirm this situation over here with the other parent. Because when the other parent feels slighted or offended, the claws are going to come out.
That's going to cause a whole nother situation.
And it takes the kids back to that same thing where they feel that they now have to choose between parents, or they now have to protect the other parent. And that's a very hard place, even as a parent, to be in. So imagine you're 9, 10, 14, 16, 17-year-old that don't have the emotional maturity to deal with that situation yet.
So what do you? Because I'm listening. I'm hearing you what you're saying,
Mhm.
but the question that comes to mind is: have you had to guard yourself
Yes.
from that child choosing you
Yes,
over their
absolutely.
biological mother?
Absolutely.
It was always a redirect
Yes.
situation. Okay, I'm here, but that's still
Your
your
mother.
mother. Well, that's still your father.
Never try to take the power from that other parent, even when you have the ability to. That's what causes them to go into that shell when they feel like, okay, well, I really want this over here, but I have to protect mom or dad over here. You always have to reaffirm and reestablish those boundaries where I'm here, I love you, I'm always going to be here, but that's still your parent.
Are we talking about the most dynamic issue that when it comes to dealing with when we're talking about having divorced children?
Yes.
Yes, because that leads you into the parent-child dynamic. It actually does, because that child then takes on the role of a parent. It's like a role reversal, you know. And that's something, Kay's most difficult part was that. My most difficult part was the parent-child dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
In me seeing my child deal with that situation, and before I even go into that, it was just something that just popped into my mind. Single women, and Kay, you can jump in on this. Single women, when they have children, mostly single women that have boy children, man child, they make that child their husband. And they've done it for so long, when it's time for them to take on a mate and get married, they don't know how to relinquish that role.
You're talking about of the male child,
Right. They have a son, but they've made their son their
the
husband.
husband.
And when it's time to relinquish that, the mother doesn't know how to let that role go, and she's already put that into the son, so the son doesn't understand that he has to let it go. And I've seen that in so many different occasions where it became a problem. And
What kind of?
we
I
came
mean,
in the situation.
what kind of problem would you say that it has caused?
Whew.
Yeah.
The definitely understanding boundaries, understanding respect, understanding that there is someone else that mom now makes decisions with, understanding that they can no longer get their way. And now the things that,
Wow.
As a woman or a single parent in the past, I didn't see. Now I had insight from a man. So now that man was like, oh, he sees me. He knows what I'm up to. So that caused, I would say, arguments, a lot of manipulation, a lot of fighting amongst the siblings. What do you call it?
It was a lot of infighting amongst the siblings.
A lot of lions in the jungle.
Yeah.
A lot of kings in the jungles, and there can only be one king in the jungle.
Let's y'all make me want to really unpack this. But you want to chime in?
Yeah, jump in.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, although I did not birth a son, and I've heard and I've known of people that have had that same experience. What you all are talking about, the son being, didn't want to relinquish that his role or his little title. But I experienced that with my daughters as well. Now, hey, this man is here, her husband, now she, they have to take a step back because now I have to consider him, So I know exactly what you all are talking about. It's just it was reversed for me. It was with the daughters and one in particular.
And I
But we
had
ain't gonna go there.
and I had to deal with it also because our oldest, she was so used to taking care of her dad,
Mhm.
so now it was like, who does this woman think she is?
Right.
Now you're feeling like, am I in a fight for my marriage or am I fighting a child?
Right.
And you have to kind of take a step back, because it took me a minute. I didn't have any guidance. Neither one of us had any guidance. We didn't have any help. So we made we messed up a lot. We
Right,
really
right.
did in the beginning.
We did
The first
too.
2 years.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I think we planned a divorce the first 3 years. I was like, I'm getting out of here.
Hey, listen, those of you who are watching by Facebook and YouTube, if you have any questions, any comments, please feel free to share them, to let us know. And also, listen, reach out to other couples or relatives who may have divorced children or dealing with divorced children. Let them know we're on, and this is the conversation which that we are having tonight. But let me ask this here.
Mhm.
Because I think that what would be beneficial, if you don't mind,
Mhm.
if we can give like an example
Okay.
of what.
I can definitely do that.
Yeah. So because even though we're talking, and I think the thing that we need to keep in mind, we're talking and sharing what we have experienced because we actually lived it. But now, just like what you just said, when you first got into it, it was new to you. It was something. It was a new dynamic in which that you had to adjust. It was a new factor, that dynamic which that you had to make different decisions. You realized, we didn't handle this right. We didn't handle that right. And we had to then you had to go back and play clean up in order to bring peace back in the home. But that's because we have walked in and lived it. But what about those couples or their parents, whether or not remarried parents, and they are starting to see these things? Give us an example, if you can, of what that was like or what that is like.
Oh man. I'm instead of using my household,
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna use myself and my parents.
Okay.
My mother and father were, I'm gonna use them.
Oh God.
My mother and father.
We love you, Mom.
my mother and father were married for 17 years, and they had 3 children. Me, my brother, and my 2 brothers. So 3 boys. My father, he was the ultimate alpha male. So I was under him every day. And in me being under him every day, I learned, what he wanted me to learn about manhood.
Mm-hmm.
And they got divorced, but he came to me and said, son, now you are the man of the house. He placed that on me at 15 years old, and I was just like, I'm the man of the house. I mean, I gotta provide, I gotta protect, and I saw him do it, and I did my best to mimic my dad. And when my mom started dating, that was super hard for me, like really hard, because I saw my father and I compared everything to the new fiance, to my father. Like, man,
Wow.
what is he doing? My dad ain't
Wow.
do it like this, And my mom, instead of going to her fiance, she would come to me for decisions.
And then puts that burden on the son. That's where I call it the son husband thing. So,
and the way things shifted was my father literally had to come to me and say, son, stop.
Oh, really?
Back. Yeah, he had to come to me because it became so much of an issue. It was making my mom unhappy.
Well, how did he know? Were you telling him or were mom telling him?
Mom called him and told him. Mom said, you've placed so much in this headstrong boy that he won't let the rings go. And I really wouldn't. It got to the point where, between 15 and 18, I was a pretty strong young man. So it was like, listen, man, either you put up or shut up, and I caused a lot of issues between my mom and her new fiance. She's now married to him. They've been married for 23 years now. I caused a lot of issues.
But how did he handle you though? How did he handle the situation though?
He talked. He talked. Now in the beginning, he's a man. He was like, hey, it's whatever. If you want to take it out there in the grass, we can take it out there in the grass. But my mom would always step in and say, okay, Kenny, you go in that corner, and Richard, you go in that corner. And then she'll make a phone call to my dad and say, hey, listen, I understand what you were trying to do with your son because he is the oldest, but you created a little monster, so you're going to have to talk to him. And my dad would talk.
At 15 years old.
Yeah.
You got a lot of nerve.
A lot.
Hey, but that's what my dad told me to do.
But I think that dynamic is much harder than it is for women, for the daughters. Would you say?
Yes.
Because especially if that's mom, I got to protect mom. Hey, you don't have no right. You're not my daddy.
Right.
You don't. Hey, you can't come in here and tell me what to do.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of things. And I think that's pretty much the mindset in which that not only you took, but a lot of young men who are divorced children.
Mm-hmm.
Because technically that's what we're doing. We may not think so. And just like I made the point last time, we make these decisions, but we only make these decisions to satisfy ourselves and forget about the children. That the fact, listen, there's no question. I think I have one son, he's 27. And just within the last year, he posed a question to me, was I going to feel the same way about his mother that I feel about my wife or one of my other children's mother? That thing blew me away.
Yeah.
Because he was feeling some kind of way that I abandoned his mother or that I stopped loving his mother. So in essence, he's taking on, I guess you can say, a defensive posture as well.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely.
Oh yeah.
No?
Definitely.
You want to ask something? Well, you just want to sit here and look cute.
You
Yeah.
look cute, sis.
Go ahead and
Come on. I mean, it was a challenge, but I really give a shout out to my wife because she really handled it well. And I know that even for us, because I know I had leaned on her a lot.
it takes a strong woman.
Yeah. And to balance between the two, to have to balance between her new husband or her husband and her children, that was a challenge. I'm sure it was, and
It wasn't that much of a challenge for me because it was only one that really had the issue. We had the issue with the other two. Well, the oldest one, she was pretty much out the door in college. She was in college. Baby girl, she was just a little perturbed that he was here. Now that meant we couldn't get a sports car because that was the thing. She was the last one left home, so we were going to get a sports car. It was just going to be me and her. So when he came in the picture, she was upset that she was not going to get her sports car, but she got over it. So it was only with the middle daughter that we had the issue.
And she could no longer sleep in the bed with you, right?
Oh yeah, Talisha, she couldn't sleep in the bed anymore. She was like, he can sleep on the couch. But with my bonus children, I love them to the moon and back, but I really didn't have much of an issue. I believe the most I had pushback with was with Kenya and baby girl. And that was only in the very beginning. And I never, talked bad about her mom or their mom at all. And I just tried to get her to see, hey, you have another parent. It's a bonus. Just look at it that way. Do what your mom instruct you to do, but you still got to do when you're here. You got to do what we instruct you to do as
Right.
well.
And that's what the challenge was, because when
Exactly.
they went back home to mom,
different lifestyles.
yeah, definitely. So, especially if they've been there a little minute, then they come over here, they realize, no, we can't do that same thing. And I had to really just, no, we're not going to do that. Now I got attacked for it, but it didn't matter, because this is how I felt. This is what I believed. That was how it was. In essence, I was going to govern my house the way that I believed that it needed to be governed, along with my wife and I together. But overall, though, when they were in the house, I guess I can honestly say that they got along pretty well. It might have been a couple of issues here and there, but the most important thing, and I think the thing that might have been very helpful, you could tell me whether or not you agree with it or not, Dave, is that we never presented our family as a divide, or shall I say, we never used the word step in our family. When we got married, not only did my wife and I exchange rings, but because we was coming together as a blended family, we put rings on all 8 of our children when we got married, because we wanted them to know that they were a part of this bond as well, just as the bond between myself and their mother, my wife, and their daughters, sons.
Everybody.
It was an act of unity.
Mm.
And the only time we ever used the word step was when we have to go, let me just say it, on the legal side, as far as schools or to hospitals or something like that. But as far as that word, this is my stepdad, this is my stepbrother, this is my stepsister, this is my stepmom, that never came out of their mouth. Never. And that was the way that we raised them. We wanted to know, because we know that these dynamics can happen. We know that these dynamics can take place. So I believe, though, that it was an idea that the Lord had given my wife. And I really believe that idea, that move, that act to put rings on their fingers as well, that was from God. And it really kept a lot of conflict that I think that we could have had. But as I stated, at times, though, our challenge was with, especially the younger children, as they got older, especially when they were able to think for themselves. They got into that teenage age. That's when the challenge really became. I think there was one other thing in which that, talking about parental. I think we already had highlighted about the parental and child dynamic, correct?
Yes.
Or do we need to go into that anymore? Okay.
No, I do have a question. Have you all run into an issue where the other parent actually spews poison to the child?
We lived in that city.
Yes, ma'am. Listen.
Yeah, it was. And again,
That was a tumultuous situation.
But the thing of it is, though, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think that when it really became evident of what was happening was when they got of age. Am I right?
Correct.
When they started getting to junior high, see the last two, my children, they had been with me from the time they were 1 and 2 years old up until what, junior high school?
Yes.
What, 12?
Middle school.
Middle school. Okay, it's not junior no more?
No, they don't.
I'm dating myself,
Yes,
huh?
you are.
Okay, all right. Well, middle school. okay, that's when it really, oh my God, and it really pulled them out of the house.
Yeah.
Because that whole dynamic in which conversations that their mother was having with them, I mean, it just painted us, especially me, like I was the worst thing ever walking on two legs, man.
Yeah.
And I had to deal with that, you know.
Yeah.
And even now, excuse me, I'm gonna say this here because somebody might be going through this. Some parent may be going through this in this place. We're gonna have to wrap it up in a few minutes here. If you as a parent are in that situation, especially as a father, and let's say you have remarried and you have children with a child or children involved, and you know that your child's mother is painting a bad rap on you about the type of father you are, whether or not you're loving, whether or not you're caring, if they're bringing up things in the past of what conflict that occurred between them two that had nothing to do between you two, that had nothing to do with the child. Child might not even been born yet, but yet still they're laying tail on the child of, I'm going to say it this way, of grown folk stuff that concerns you. The best way to handle it is tough. And I'm not going to sit here and say this is tough. But for me, for what worked for me was to say what I had to say one time and to leave it alone. I think you don't have to attempt to prove it, that what is being said about you is a lie.
The truth gonna come out.
It's gonna come out.
It's gonna come out.
And that's what I had learned. I had learned that. So I just kept my mouth closed. I would reach out. Sometimes they would answer, sometimes they wouldn't. But no matter what, though, whenever they called, I didn't act any different toward them. I loved on them regardless. Whether or not I had to love on them from a distance, I did it. My thing is, don't be upset with yourself because of how they feel or because of what the mother is doing. You don't do that. If anything, remain true to yourself. As long as you know what the truth is.
Right.
As long as you know what the truth is, you know that you care about your child, you care about your children, just keep walking it, bro. Just keep living it. Because they may not see it now or when they right up close in the moment, but later down the road, they're going to see, oh man, it wasn't as bad, or what my mom said to me, I don't see that. That's not true. It's not true. So
they'll remember scenarios. The kids will remember the scenarios as they get older, and then they're going to be able to replay them and go and say, man, mom was really wrong. My mom was tripping,
Right. And I think that's where that divide comes in, where it causes them to want to choose between mom or choose between dad. Well, because I know one of my children, we don't have time to go into the whole detail because we got to wrap it up. But they were put in that position where it said, I want to do right by my father, but I also want to do right by mom, but I don't like what you're saying about my father.
Right.
So now, mom, I want to love you just as much as I love my father, but it's not fair for you to try to poison my mind or my perception. Let me say it this way. Parents, it's not fair for you to poison the mind of your child about their parent, regardless of what. Even if you two don't get along, don't talk, don't communicate, whatever. Keep your thoughts about that child's father. Keep your thoughts about that child's mother to yourself. That's grown folk stuff.
Correct.
Right.
Don't involve your child in it. Then you're using the child as a pawn because you hurt. So you want to hurt. You want to try to get back at the person, that father or that mother through the child. That's unfair to the child.
Right. The only person they're hurting is the child.
Is the child at the end of the day. And then here it is, you're on the other side as a good parent. You see the pain and the suffering and the mental effect that it is causing on the child, and you're doing all you can to mentor to that, to minister to that, to mentor it. Look,
Can I say something?
Yes, you can.
Also, like to single mothers, I was a single parent for 10 years. Women, I love you, but your son is not your husband. He's not your husband. You know, if I knowing what I know now, I would have done it so differently, but I have the wisdom now moving forward. So I'm going to give it to you. If you raise your son like he's your husband and you involve him in your situations in your life outside of the place of a child, you are going to wreak havoc on your future marriage, because he's not going to readily accept, she's not going to readily accept that person coming in. They're going to have a perception of what that person is coming in to do, which is to unseat them and uproot them and to take their place or their position. You will be hurting yourself. Please stop calling little boo-boo my little husband. Little boo-boo is not your husband. He's your son. She's your daughter. That's not your little wife. Wow. If you don't establish those boundaries early, it's going to present itself later on, and you're going to have to deal with the monster that you created. And it's not going to be easy. I'm telling you, because I went through it. I know it firsthand. And we're still dealing with the effects of a decision I made to do, thinking I was trying to be the best parent that I could be at 17, without any tools, without any help, without any instructions. Right. You know?
Can you give us an example?
One of the examples would be, my son was 10 when I had my second child, which was my daughter. He had a hard time already accepting her because it was just us two for 10 years. We did everything together. Everything was centered and catered around and to and towards and for him. Right? So when she came on the picture, he already felt like this kid is coming to take away what I know. Then a year later, what was it? A year? A year later, my husband came on the scene. Now, we had dated off and on prior to my daughter, but now he's older. He didn't see it when he was younger.
Right.
I got it from him. Now, this was serious.
Yeah.
You know, it was serious. So now this man comes in and he's having a hard time. I'm talking about, you're not my dad. You can't tell me what to do. Right. Don't say nothing to me. This is not your house. This is our house. This is my son saying this at 11 years old. You know,
wow.
Those are your kids. Those are not my brothers or my sisters. Yeah. Where did they come from? No, I'm not doing that. You know, because I have always told him it's just going to be the two of us. The two of us.
Wow.
And when you put that in a child's mind, that's what they're set on.
Right.
Now it's creating a problem that later on, even now into his relationship, he's with a young lady now. I can see the patterns. Those young men are the same young men, you know, that go into relationships in the future and they don't want to work.
And you know, they get stuck in that
bubble.
Yeah, they get stuck in that time, that area of time.
For them to grow, they don't develop. They don't develop mentally and emotionally and psychologically. We keep them in a bubble. That is why I really believe that is why we have so many young Black men these days that don't want to work, that want to sit down and watch TV because mom protected them, didn't make them get up, didn't make them do chores, didn't have a discipline and a role set for them. We felt that, especially if you didn't have your father in your life or have him all the way, you will feel like, okay, I got to be mother and father. So you overcompensate and you tell him, well, he doesn't have to do that. He doesn't have to do this. You know, being too hard. You know, well, his dad's not in his life. So it continues and it progresses into their future.
Wow. Well, you know what? You unpacked a whole lot there. And I think, like we have pointed out, we can really be talking about this for a while, because there's a lot to be said. You got anything you want to add, man? Hey, thank you all so much for sharing your experiences, and we hope that something
And your wisdom.
We pray and hope that something that's been said here tonight that would help someone. And that's all we want to do. We just want to help someone. But before we go, though, we want to just listen. Y'all know I have to share this. Diary of a Virtuous Wife that was written by my mother. How to live with infidelity and win doing it God's way. If you want this book, this is a very good book for you wives, especially wives that are dealing with infidelity by your husband. Okay, get this book. My mother was inspired to write this book, and just sharing her story of what she went through as a wife of infidelity, but because she did it God's way, she was able to experience 70 years of being with the same man. Also, my father, I'm grateful to that. Also, I want you all to go check out my brother, Mr. Aaron Gibbons, Real Talk Podcast. He comes on at Thursdays at 7 p.m. Every Thursday, he's there. Check his podcast out. Good content there. Also, there's another. I read this book yesterday, I think in about 6 hours or so. Just Between Us Girls, that was written by Miss Dominique Duinville. Mrs. Come on, talk to us.
Yes, we had her book released yesterday. It was amazing, but you really have to get the book. She really drops nuggets straight from heaven.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm not doing it any justice. Get the book.
Yeah, a lot of great nuggets in that. A lot of great nuggets. Let me tell you something. I don't know. I think I got my book all marked up. And I tell you the truth and I want to be careful when I say this, but even though it says that it's titled Just Between Us Girls, and it talks about, let me see here. Hey, you ought to be helping me out here. Don't leave me hanging I'm
not leaving you hanging.
All right. Well, it's a book about relationships. Okay. So, but if any man has any sense, he'll read that book with his wife.
Yeah. I got mine.
Yeah, I know. He'll read that book with his wife.
Let's say a mature man.
Yeah, you are, but of course.
Because we don't want, and this was something that Miss Dominique.
No, absolutely.
Discussed.
Absolutely.
We don't want the young bloods to get a hold of it and then try to use it to their advantage.
Yeah.
No, that's not what we want.
They will.
Yeah.
They will try.
Yeah.
No, but it's really great wisdom that's trying to help not only the new freshly married couples, but for even the old. There's something in there for everybody. Mm-hmm. It's very, very good.
Yeah. Well, anyway, go check them out. Go check that book out. You can DM us as well. Eventually, we're going to soon have a platform where you can purchase these books directly. But get them, support them. These are great content. We have one more podcast that I want to highlight. They come on right after us. That is Let's Talk Marriage. Elias and Taisha Carvel. Great content. They come on at Sundays at 8 p.m. Go check them out. Support them as well. Hey, without any further ado, hey, family, because you all definitely family. We appreciate you all for your time and everything, and you taking time out your busy schedule. We have been long overdue now, and we're going to get out of here. Hey, y'all have a good night. See you next week, everyone. We're going to have a guest on next week, and we're going to do some talking. We're going to talk about, might be some church stuff. So, hey, tune in next week. We'll definitely put out a flyer, a bulletin to let you all know. Again, those of you who are watching by YouTube, hey, appreciate your support. Share, like, comment, even Facebook, share, like, comment. Subscribe if you're on YouTube. We certainly appreciate that. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, A Father's Note with Lionel Nelson, please go on over there and subscribe with us. I mean, the word is getting out, and we certainly appreciate it. So without any further ado, we're going to say good night to everyone. God bless.
Lionel Nelson here. Welcome to A Father's Note, promoting fathers through building men. It's so important that we always stand up for our fathers.
We want you to know we're with you. We're standing behind you 110%.